at first we need to understand what emotions are, right? Before we understand what emotional agility is, we need to know what emotions are. How do we, how do emotions arise in our body, and what is the importance, or I could say, how can we utilize emotions to guide us in our life, day to day life. All right, so let's start the session for today. So this session on emotional agility, beginning with what emotions are. So let's have a small round of questions. What are emotions, or what are the different types of emotions that we feel on a normal day? You can start answering on the chat. Yes, happiness, first emotion. Sadness, yes. Excitement, anger, yes. Happiness, fear, anger, sadness, tension, yes. So looking at the responses, I'll come to them later. First, let me focus on what emotions are. So emotions are a reaction that human beings experience in response to specific events or situations, right? So there is an event or a situation in your life, something happens and you react to that. So when that reaction happens, that is your emotion. For example, you are coming out of the airport, and suddenly you see your childhood friend, and you're like, wow, it's been ages, and you just run and go and hug her, and wow, and you, like, there's like Bharat Milap type over there, and you are like very happy to see her. So that is a reaction to a situation, right? And that emotion that you had was happiness, excitement. So there were a lot of things in that particular situation. So it is determined by the circumstance that triggers the emotion. Okay, like this circumstance or this particular event was that of happiness, right? It was meeting somebody whom you loved when you were a child. Sometimes it could be somebody, you know, probably a teacher whom you feared when you were in school, and suddenly you see that teacher. You may not fear, but there will be some kind of apprehension to meet that person. The emotion will not be the same, right? So our experience, or the way we experience emotion, completely is dependent on the circumstances that trigger that particular emotion. So joy is for good news and fear for threaten. Then if there is some kind of loss of a death one loss of a loved death of a loved one, I'm so sorry, death of a loved one, you feel sad. Then you create something or you make something, so there's excitement. So there are various emotions that we face in our come across in our life. So what are they defined by? Okay, there are three things that are defined, like an emotion is defined by. One is a facial expression. Now you can see on my face that I'm excited to do this workshop, excited to meet with you all, excited to talk with you all, right? So my facial expression is that of excitement and happiness right now. Then my body language is that of wanting to share, wanting to give, wanting to meet people. So that is my body language. It's an open body language, right? And tone of voice keeps modulating according to my emotions, according to the way I want to communicate to you all, right? So there are three ways in which we can communicate our emotions. One is through a facial expression, second one is through a body language, and third one is to our tone of voice. Okay, so these are the primary emotions. Okay, now when I asked you in the chat what are the basic emotions that all of us feel, it was happiness, anger, fear, sadness. So those were the emotions. Now there are six primary emotions, six or eight primary. So I'm just showing you six out of that: happiness, sadness, fear, disgust, anger, and surprise. Now, why do we call these primary emotions? Because they are the key emotions, and other emotions are a combination of this. right? So under happiness, you will have joy, you will have excitement, you will have, probably exclamation, surprise. Those are positive emotions under happiness. So under sadness, you will have a loneliness, you'll have depression, you will have some kind of crying. So all those things come under sadness. So there are a combination of emotions under each of these primary emotions. Okay. So why do we feel emotions? Because we are human beings, right? And they are necessary for our survival. If we don't emote, that is also an illness. Do you all know that? If a person is unable to emote or express, that person is considered to be mentally ill. That comes under a category of illness. Okay. So we have used emotions in our past or in our lives till date to help us prepare for anything the world may throw at us, right? So emotions have been like our steering wheel. So the steering wheel takes you in the direction that it, the of the car, the steering of the steering wheel in a car will actually guide you on the road where you want to go, right? If you want to take a right turn, you will have to, though for those who know how to drive, you will have to move the steering wheel towards the right, and then the car will move to the right. Again, if you want to move to the left, you have to move the steering wheel, turn the steering wheel to the left. So similarly, emotions help us prepare for anything that the world may throw at us. All right. So as human beings, we have the advantage of two options. What are these two options? First one is emotions. Okay. And the second one is rational thinking. Okay. The first one is emotions, which gives a reaction. Okay. It gives an instant reaction. And the second one is rational thinking. Now, what is rational thinking? Rational thinking is something which actually shapes our lives. Okay, emotions can be the steering wheel, but rational thinking is the indicator कि आपको left जाना है, right जाना है. So that is actually making you stop and think. Or you can also consider rational thinking as the signal, the traffic signal. It is a signal which actually guides you whether you're supposed to stop, you're supposed to slow down, or you're supposed to move on in life. Any imbalance between these two causes mental illness. So if there is any imbalance between emotions and rational thinking, there could be an imbalance in the mental health. So can we imagine a world of humans without rationale, how it would be? It would be very animalistic, because animals do not have that rational thinking option. But as human beings, we have that option, and we have the right to exercise that particular option. So if we don't have a rationale, or if we don't have rational thinking or exercise rational thinking, then the world would be a very, very animalistic place to live. See, we have seen many incidents in, we can read in the newspapers that, children have been abducted, or a girl has been raped, or there has been some killing which has happened. So there are a lot of things which happen which are actually motivated by basic primary emotions like anger, fear, it could be jealousy. So all these things drive, all these emotions can drive a human being to become animalistic if he or she does not follow any kind of rational thinking. All right. So is it okay to feel emotional? This is a question I'm asking you all now. Is it okay to feel emotional? Yes, no? Yes. Yes. All of us, right? So all of us feel that definitely it seems rational thinking is the steering wheel. Rational thinking is the steering wheel. Okay, I would like you to explain. Gail, can you please explain that?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, yes.
Yes. Yes, my question right before that statement was, how is emotional thinking the steering wheel? Because emotions, they just arise spontaneously in reaction to our circumstances. And then it is the rational thinking by the rational thinking that we seem to direct our response to those emotions. So I didn't understand how emotions are the steering wheel.
See, emotions, I'm saying emotions as the steering wheel because it helps guide us, right? It's guiding us in a specific direction, yes or no?
I'm not
Yes.
seeing
So
how is I'm not
the
seeing that.
basic emotion that we feel will guide us to respond or react to a particular situation. Now, whether to react or respond will depend on the traffic signal, right?
I think I need an example how an emotion guides us.
Okay, I'll come to that later. It is going to come later on. And if you still have a doubt, we'll address it at the end of the session. Is that okay?
Okay, only problem is that you're
Yeah,
basing your
it's
lecture
going to be
on
covered
this.
later on.
Okay.
Okay, so it is perfect. It's perfectly okay to feel emotional. And sometimes you feel more emotional, sometimes we feel less emotional, depends on our genetic component in the body. You know, if we have a whole lot of sensitive or emotional people in the family, there is a tendency to, you know, become more emotional. Like, you know, when you're sitting and watching a movie together, which is a little emotional, you know, you have a tendency to pass tissue paper to each other. So this has happened in our families. Many times we go to the theater when we were children, not now, when we were young, when we were small, we would go watch a movie and then we would be passing the handkerchief, you know, in the theater to each other. So there were six of us going for movies together, you know, all cousins and all. So it is perfectly normal, and sometimes it is more, sometimes it is less, right? So examples could be crying while watching a movie, feeling passionate about things you love, getting angry over, you know, social injustice. But these are all signals that we are all human beings and they are not red flags. All right, so we need to understand that. So another thing is that it is completely okay to let yourself fully experience the feelings of anger, sadness, pain, or wanting. Many times, what is this statement? Many times, what we do is we go into a shell of denial. You know, when we are sad or when we are in pain, we want to deny it. There are certain desires that we have, we want to deny it. So it is important, like, you know, we did in the first session, we did something about the cycle of acceptance, right? So we need to first move into the cycle of acceptance. You know, for us to actually feel what we are experiencing, first we need to accept that feeling, even if it is a negative emotion. All right. So once you get into the habit of accepting even negative emotions, then it is easier for us to move on to work on that emotion. Otherwise, it's very difficult. If we are in a state of denial, then it becomes difficult for us to work on the relationship. See, it's the same with a problem also. Unless and until we accept that there is a problem, there will be no working on the problem. So similarly, unless and until there is an acceptance of the emotion, of whether it is sadness or happiness, pain or hunger or whatever, you know, unless we accept that emotion, it's not going to be possible for us to work on that emotion. So when we resist the temptation to judge these, we have to resist the temptation to judge these emotions or label them. So it's like normally whenever we feel something, we have a tendency to judge, you know, oh, I'm feeling this way, so I need to label this emotion as it. Just feel it, you know, you don't need to keep naming the emotion or labeling the emotion. You just need to probably just feel the emotion at this point in time. If you sit with these emotions, you can actually learn to be more comfortable with them. So many times there are people, you know, I have seen in my number of years of practice, people are not comfortable emoting or communicating or expressing their, you know, emotions to anybody. It comes out as a major drawback for a lot of people in their lives. How to express? Mataji, I don't know. Ma'am, please tell us how should we express this? Even in school, when I go, it becomes difficult. I've seen that children find it difficult to express or emote. Especially, I find this more in the male gender because they are not really taught how to express themselves. So it comes out in the form of aggression, it comes out in the form of anger, or it comes out in the form of some kind of mischief. So it is so essential for us to learn how to channelize and express our emotions. Now we move on to the aspect of emotional agility. Okay, what does emotional agility mean? It is a process that allows us to change or maintain our behaviors in ways that align with our intentions and values. So emotional agility is a process. Okay, number one. All right. It allows us to change or maintain our behavior. So it gives us the flexibility to either change our behavior or at least maintain certain behaviors that are good for our development, personal development, in ways that align with our intentions. So many times, whenever we, act, or whenever we react to a particular emotion, it is more out of judgment, and the intent is less. Okay, the intent is less, but the particular the judgmental tone is more. So it is very important that whenever we emote or whenever we adapt to a particular emotion, we have the intentions very clear. Okay, this is the reason why I want to be adaptable to this particular situation or this particular event, and it has to be in alignment with our values. So this is a very deep statement, and it's a whole series of workshops, which the intentions and values will come at a later stage, how we do the alignment. So I'm just not going to touch on that topic right now. We are just going to work on how to be emotionally agile, without hanging on or getting stuck in certain aspects of our lives. So, emotional agility is a process that enables us to navigate life's twists and turns with self acceptance, clear sightedness, and an open mind. All right. So, it is there are three things whenever we talk about emotional agility. We talk about self acceptance, which I just spoke about, accepting our emotions, accepting our feelings. A clear sightedness, that means intentions are very clear. All right. And open mind. The open mind is very important, because if you are conservative and if you are close minded, it becomes very difficult for you to become emotionally agile. So we don't ignore any difficult emotions and thoughts when we are emotionally, or when we are trying to be emotionally agile. We more or less try to accept these difficult emotions and thoughts. It is the way we navigate our inner world, our inner everyday thoughts, emotions, and self stories. So there is an inner world in all of us, right? Now this inner world comprises of many things, which I will come to later. Our everyday thoughts, we have to navigate through them. That's why I was talking about the steering wheel. We need a steering wheel to navigate that. So the emotions are the steering wheel, and emotions and self stories. Now self stories is the self talk that goes on in our mind regarding certain situations or events. Okay, now for example, I'll give you, um suppose there is a discord, or whatever, say there is some kind of an argument between a parent and child. All right. And the parent has already or the child is already made up something, there is already processing which has happened in the brain. And as soon as the parent starts speaking, you know the child shuts down. Well, this is an everyday process. I don't want to listen to this. So the self story is that my mother or my father is going to repeat the same thing again, and I'm not interested in listening to the same story. All right. So this is one self story that the child creates. Another self story is that the child can always say that right now I'm not in the frame of mind to think about anything, and I don't want to listen to him or her. So these are all self talks that goes on in our mind. There are many self talks whenever we are having an argument with our spouse or partner, or having an argument with our friend, with our boss. It could be anything. So all these self talks and self stories matter a lot. So please write down whatever you have not understand. We can take questions at the end of the session. So it drives our career, our life, our actions, relationships, happiness, health, everything. this, this particular navigation. But most of us are rigid to change. So we already have a set pattern of thinking. We already have a set pattern of behavior, and we don't want to change. So that means we are rigid to change. We are not even open to change. You know, the emotional agility will begin when we become at least open to change. But here, that rigidity itself is that itself is a mental block right now. So how do we move from rigidity to agility? So I'll just share a small story with you all. There was this huge cargo liner which was going in the, it was moving in the sea, and it saw a light far away somewhere, and as the light was nearing, the captain of the ship, the cargo ship, he communicated to the captain of the other ship that, please move away because you are obstructing our path. So the captain of the other ship, he said that you move away or you change your path or direction because we cannot move. So there was this, to and fro, back and forth argument between the captain of both the ships. Then finally, the captain of the, the person who was in the cargo liner, he said that either you move away or I'll come and, he got very angry. So he said, either you move away or I'm going to come directly and, attack your whatever the ship. So he said, I cannot move away because I am the lighthouse. So there are times when we have to be open to certain situations, open to certain discussions, open to certain, feedback from the opposite person. So in this case, it was a lighthouse. Obviously, the lighthouse cannot move. So it is it is very important for us to understand the perspective, the other person's perspective, instead of just sticking to our own. All right. So what guides us as we travel through our lives? Now, it is not a lighthouse. We don't have a radar on our tower which is watching out for any kind of submerged, threats. Okay, by underground there is a lot of threat, and you need to be attentive or very careful. So now here, the lighthouse, which is a guide, it is our emotions. So it could be rage to love. Okay. So these are all signals. These are all signals from the outside world that we need to act upon. All right. And it is necessary to have a synchronization between the inner state and the outer behavior. It cannot be unsynchronized, or, there cannot be an imbalance between the inner feeling and the outer behavior. All right. But many times it does happen, right? You're feeling something, but you're showing something else on your face. So when there is a synchronization between the inner state and the outer behavior, it will help us actually thrive, not only survive in the world. So you have to actually be who you are. You need not fear to be who you are, actually, So there has to be a sync between our inner state and our outer behavior. So one of the problems that we face is we are always striving to be perfect. So what does that lead to? It sets us up for frustration and failure. And what is another aspect of striving to be perfect is that we act in obstinate and stubborn ways to new situations also. All right. You have a given thought pattern. You have a way in which you have reacted or, responded to a particular situation for many years, but what happens is that even for a new situation, you act in the same way. Suppose, for example, your see, there is a lot of generation gap between the current children and the parents. Frankly speaking, it's a huge gap. It's very difficult for them to bridge that gap. So when a child, or when your suppose a teenager comes and tells you that I want to go for a night out. All right. In your probably days, like when I was a teenager, my mother would have not allowed me for a night out. She would have said, no, this is not done and this is not going to happen. Suppose I stick to the same rule even now, even if I become obstinate and stubborn and stick to the old ways and norms to the particular new situation, what happens? Again, it will lead to frustration and sometimes failure in parenting technique also, right? So there are some old reactions which are old, I would not say reactions also. There could be some old beliefs that we carry, like I am a loser, I always say the wrong things, I can't stand up for myself. So many times what happens is that we buy into these old beliefs, we get carried away by these old beliefs or old reactions. We have reacted like this in the past, so we stick to the same reaction even now. Then there is a belief that people can't be trusted. Okay, so we go by that belief. Whatever I say, you know, or whatever I say or whatever I do will not be believed by others. Or whatever others do or what the others say also, I cannot trust because I don't believe in them. So there is also a problem of delegation. If you are if you're a person who's a controller by nature and you like to control things, you will not be able to trust other people. You will not be able to delegate things to other people. If you are a team leader, it will become difficult for you to delegate assignments to your juniors. And then there is also a feeling that I might land up hurting people. So in the process of striving to be perfect, these are all the obstacles that we come across. So, what is emotional rigidity versus agility? So, rigidity is getting hooked onto your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that don't serve you, frankly speaking. Okay. So, we did this in the first session. We asked this question when we're challenging the negative thoughts: is this thought helpful to you? Similarly, getting hooked on to certain thoughts, feelings, and behaviors which don't help us is known as emotional rigidity. And what is agility? Is being flexible with your thoughts and feelings so that you can respond optimally to everyday situations. See, it says optimally, it does not say fully or 100%, that the reaction will be correct. No, it says optimal. So, optimum utility of your emotions. It's not about forcing yourself to think positively or about controlling your thoughts. All right. So, emotional agility or rigidity does not mean, it means that you should not be forcing yourself to think positively, which we spoke about earlier, that feel the negative emotions also, or by controlling your thoughts. Can we control our thoughts? I think in the last 2 days we have kind of covered that aspect, that it is difficult to control our thoughts, right? We can manage them, but we cannot control them. So it's more about loosening up, calming down, and living with more intention. So we need to loosen up. We need to calm down whenever we have some difficult situation or event in our life. Just calm down, take deep breaths, and think clearly. When I say living with more intention, become clear sighted, become open. All right. It's about how you respond to your emotional warning system. So when we have the red flag which keeps waving, it is how we respond to that particular warning. So there is a person called Viktor Frank. He's a Nazi. He's a Nazi camp survivor and author of a book called Man's Search for Meaning. He says that between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. I really loved this particular statement. That's why I put it up in red today. Let's read this again. Between stimulus and response. What is a stimulus? Stimulus is a triggering event. Okay. Any event that triggers a response from you is a stimulus. Okay. So between the stimulus and the response, there is a space, right? There is a time frame. And in that time frame is our power to choose our response. So we have that power, like we spoke about yesterday, maintaining a degree of control. So when we have the power to choose our response, then that response will bring about growth and also will make us free. It's important to understand that in our response lies our growth and our freedom. Okay. So this is a very, very important point which I wanted to discuss with you all. So when we open up that space, it makes us more emotionally agile. It helps us with multiple issues, starting from negative self-image, heartbreaks, physical pain, anxiety, depression, etc. So last 2 days, the conclusion is today, becoming emotionally agile. So when you become emotionally agile, it will help you with even issues like physical pain, anxiety, depression, and multiple things. So I put down just a few things which I have come across, but there are many things that being open, being liberal about your, uh, the space in which you think will help you with a lot of your issues. So all of us feel trapped. Yes, sometimes we go through this experience of feeling suffocated. So what are these feelings? When does it happen? Probably when the phone battery dies. Array, now what do I do? Where do I go? Okay, there's a feeling of being trapped. Bills are piling up. I don't know how to pay. I don't know from where to get the finances. Trains are running late. It's not in my control, but still I feel trapped. Demands of modern life make us feel trapped. Demand from spouse, demand from children, demand from in-laws, demand from office work, demands from society. So there are so many demands of the modern life which make us feel trapped. Makes us want to run away actually sometimes. Constant struggle to embrace what's right for you versus what you actually do. This is a very, very critical point, which I want to emphasize on, that there is a constant struggle in us, kya karna hai, what is the right thing for me to do versus what I actually end up doing. Okay. So there's a lot of difference and there's a lot of struggle for this. Self-defeating thoughts and behaviors restrict growth and change. So there's a lot of self-downing which happens in our thoughts, in our behavior, which restrict our growth and change. So now I'm going to ask you this question. Are you hooked? What does this mean? What does are you hooked mean? Can anybody answer?
Hare Krishna Mataji, is it like
Yes?
आप कहीं अटके हो? Are you hanging out somewhere or some emotion or some?
हाँ, कहीं अटक गए. Correct. You are hanging on to certain things, right? Good. हाँ. So I'm going to be sharing some real life situations in this. Like suppose husband does not take your call when you want to vent out. What will happen? How many of you are married here? Unhealthy attachment to something, yes? Let me see how many are married. Only two? Okay. I'm not going to say husband here. Let me just change it as spouse. The spouse does not take your call when you want to vent out. Suppose you're having some major showdown at work or at home, wife is at home, husband is at office, or husband is at home and wife is at office. Either ways. And you want your spouse or your partner to take your call and you want to vent out and the partner does not take your call. What happens? Who wants to answer this? Which married person would like to dare to answer this question? No one? Okay.
Mataji, we feel फिर फायदा ही क्या है? What is the point then?
किस चीज का? हाँ, फायदा क्या है? Sorry, I didn't get you, Mataji.
Yes, Mataji. Then we feel like, what is the point in it then? Like, if we don't have association of each other at the point of need, then
Ha,
what is the
right, right. So that is a thought which hooks, which you get hooked onto. What is the point in having a partner when you can't even call up and vent out whenever you feel like, right? Okay, that is one thing. Next situation, wife has prepared a simple dinner. Arey yaar, now again the same thing, dal chawal or khichdi. Why can't she make something different? Okay, or she's so lazy, or she has no creativity. All right, so I'm just giving some things which just came off my mind right now. My friends just forgot to invite me for a birthday. Group of close friends, and they forgot to invite you for a birthday, one of the friends' birthday. What do you do then? Do you just let it go?
We feel like we've done something wrong, or I'll feel what's the fault? Have I done something wrong? That's why this is not happening. So
Right,
feel
right.
guilty.
Tendency to blame oneself, right? Correct? कि कहीं मैंने कुछ गलत कर दिया है, right? Next, so what stories do we make of these situations? We just made up the stories. So bigger issue is the conflict between the world these stories describe, okay, and the world we want to live in. All right, so there is a difference. That actually what these stories describe and what is the world we actually want to live in. Are you getting my point? So the world the story describes is that what is actually what you are thinking, that is the hooked part, all right, and the world we want to live in. You don't want to be hooked, you don't want to be hooked onto these thoughts, and that is the world where we can actually thrive. All right, so we'll learn how to get unhooked, or what are the different ways of not unhooked. Sorry, unhooked would be at the later stage. Today we will be learning the 4 ways of getting hooked. All right, so before that, just a small voice of conscience, that there are 16,000 words which are spoken on an average day. This is just statistics. Internal voice produces thousands more. Okay, now 16,000 words are spoken, but internally it could be 1,60,000 words, and this internal thing is known as the internal chatterbox, जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं self talk, and it analyzes without any pause. It's a constant, chatting which keeps happening in your mind, and it's a very unreliable narrator. You cannot bank on this particular chatterbox. So our internal narrator may be biased, confused, or deceptive. Okay, so there are 3 things that we have to consider when we are doing the self talk, that our internal narrator जो है वो biased हो सकता है, confused हो सकता है, या deceptive हो सकता है. It will just not shut up. All right, you may be able to stop yourself from sharing your thoughts, but can you stop from yourself from having these thoughts? All the best. It's not possible. We just learned in the last 2 days that we cannot control these thoughts, right? We can stop ourselves from sharing these thoughts, but we cannot control, or we cannot stop ourselves from having these thoughts. So I'm going to do a small experiment with you all now. I'm keeping the chat box on. All right, some prompts. What thoughts do these generate? Your mobile phone. I want instant action, reaction. What thoughts does your mobile phone generate? When I say your mobile phone, what is the first thought that comes to your mind? It's a game we're playing. Comfort and dependence, yes. Next, distraction, yes. Can't live without it. Calls, yes. Political news, okay. Fine. Okay, I'm going to the next one. Social media, messages, laziness. Oh, wow, great. Okay, I'm moving on to the next one now. Your house. What does your house rules, comfort, temple, rest, prison. All right. Okay. Interesting choice of words, I should say. Next, your in-laws. Though for those who are married, sometimes heaven, sometimes not so. No words. Nice. Hope they're good. Good. Okay. Responsibility. That's all. Yes. Okay. Fine. Next, your spouse or partner. It could be anybody. All right. It need not be your spouse. It could be your partner also. Grateful. Okay. Unmatchable. Loving and caring. Yes. Understanding. Very nice. I'm happy to see these responses. Okay, great. Your weight. Who wants to comment on this? No one? Never goes down. Yes, agreed. Not able to work on it. Yes. Little more than it needs to be. Okay, fine. Great. So, your job. Who wants to answer this? Okay. Like a puzzle, responsibility. My son is my first priority. Duty only. Sacrifice for my kids. Okay, great. So, can you all see now where we are going? I want to make this, concept clear to all of you. So getting hooked is responding automatically to a situation. All right. Now, it begins when you accept your thoughts as facts. Like your thought or your assumption becomes facts. Like you say, I'm no good. I always screw up things. So this becomes a fact of your life. It does not remain your thought. Okay. Second is we start avoiding situations that actually evoke these thoughts. So I'm not going to try again because I'll end up screwing up. So I am not ever going to try this again. All right. Next would be may endlessly replay that thought. The last time I tried it, it was so humiliating. So I am not going to try it again because I always screw up. Are you getting the link now? Then you may as well try to will these thoughts away. Like I can't have thoughts that make me ineffective. So sometimes you just want to brush it under the carpet. You don't even want to dwell on these thoughts because it makes me effective or it makes me sad. So I don't even want to. This is what I said was what I spoke to you all about is accepting the thoughts. So when you don't accept, you're just brushing them under the carpet and just suppressing them and storing them for them to come out at a later stage. All right. So how does a random thought turn into a hook? All right. First is the internal chatter that I spoke to you about. The 1,60,000 words could be more also. Plus, there is a technical or thought blending which happens inside our mind. So there is an additional, visual imagery attached to it, or some past experience attached to it, or some future uncertainty or fear attached to it. And then comes the emotional punch. Now I can't do this anymore. And you are hooked. Did you get this plus thing? First, the internal chatter is going on in your mind. Then comes the technical or thought blending. Thought blending means it blends with the internal chatter. Whatever you are thinking turns into a visual imagery, and then it adds on to the internal chatter, whatever is going on. And then the emotional punch that I'm not good at this. I can never stand up to anything. I'm always going to be screwing up things, or I'm always going to be a loser. So these are all, it is this internal chatter plus technical thought blending plus emotional punch is equal to getting hooked. All right.
Could you please give an example, like with a real life situation or an emotion?
Yes,
One more.
yes, yes. I'll share that. I'll just share that. I'll finish this slide, then I'll share the real life emotion. Okay,
Sure.
what happens? Okay, let me share the example first. That there is a lot of like there is an emotional, there is an event which happens. Like suppose your child comes home and shows you the report card. Okay, let's take that for example. And there are three red lines in that report card. What is the internal chatter which goes on in your mind? That my child has not studied, I have not put in sufficient efforts, okay, I have not been able to give proper support and guidance, all right, or my child is lazy, he doesn't want to put in any efforts from his end, um, he is dumb, he is not intelligent, his school is not good, his teacher is not good. So these are the multiple thoughts which are going. Okay, this is the internal chatter which is going on in your mind. Now, technical or thought blending would be a visual imagery of something which happened to you as a child. Okay, it could be, it need not be. Probably you also as a child probably had failed in a couple of subjects. So, sorry, is my child like myself, unable to study, not able to, clear certain subjects? The emotional punch would be, Array, I could not do it, so my child also will not be able to do it. Or because I was not able to do it, my child is not able to do it. So you feel like a failure. I am the loser here. So that is the emotional punch. Okay, that is that emotional, that sentence which you finally make or label yourself. That is the emotional punch. The judgment that you give to yourself or form about about yourself is the emotional punch, which equals to being hooked. Okay, is it clear to everybody or needs explanation?
No, you can continue.
Is it clear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Like it starts like another example, it starts with I'm not spending enough time with my daughter, so I'm just not around enough. Okay, now the chatter blends with visual images when you have not been around due to some work pressure or work at home or some other responsibilities. So that visual images blends with the chatter. And finally, the emotional punches, it's the special effect that adds enormous power to the script. I yelled at my daughter, just like that, I feel so guilty. Okay. So you're not spending time, you're not around, then you've not been around for certain, time because of your work pressure or some responsibilities, some illness in the family, and you've just finished yelling at your daughter. Okay, what is this? How can you keep expecting me to, be around all the time? And then you feel guilty. So the emotional punch is finally, what is the emotional punch? So you get hooked onto a particular sentence that I'm not a good enough mother, or I'm not a good enough person, I'm not a good enough woman, whatever it could be, anything. So the final emotional punch would be the hook of that particular event, whichever has happened. All right. So there are four most common hooks. The first one is thought blaming. Second one is monkey mindedness. Third one is old and outgrown ideas. And fourth one is wrong headed righteousness. Okay, so we will take the first one, thought blaming. So, first one is that I thought I'd embarrass myself, so I didn't mingle at the party. So, these are some of the thoughts which are going on in my mind right now. I thought she was being aloof, so I stopped sharing information on the project. Okay, the class, you're having some project work and you see that your friend is not paying attention, she's distracted, so you stop sharing information. She's not paying attention, so I'm not going to be sharing any more information. I thought he was going to start in on finances, so I walked out of the room. So suppose two partners are having a discussion and the one partner feels that you know the other partner is going to start talking about finances, so I walk out of the room. I thought I would sound stupid, so I didn't say it. This is a very common thing when we're having group discussions, that people feel that they may blurt out something stupid, so they don't speak at all. I thought she would make the first move, so I didn't call. So these are some of the thoughts which you blame yourself, not a thought blaming. So in each of the above examples, there is a blaming one's thoughts. There is not enough space between stimulus and response that we spoke about earlier. Then thoughts in isolation do not cause behavior. Okay. So if there is only thought, it will not cause a specific behavior. It has to be connected to a feeling of, it has to be connected to a feeling, or it has to be connected to a particular event. It has to be connected to internal chatter. It has to be connected to that what particular way, what we said, technical or color blend, so blend thoughts. So if a thought is in isolation, it does not cause a specific behavior. Old stories do not cause behavior. Just a story being which has happened in the past will not cause a behavior in the present, right? Something has to trigger for that particular behavior to happen, right? So an isolated thought or an old story on its own will not cause any behavior. We cause our behavior. Okay, now here the we is very important, because the we will involve all the other process that I just spoke of. All right, so an old story connected with internal chatter, connected with technical or thought blending, and the emotional punch will cause a specific behavior. So moving on to monkey mindedness, it's an incessant internal chatterbox is going on in our head. It leaps from one topic to another like a monkey swinging on a tree. All right. So when there is a lot of chatter going on in our mind, what happens? 1, 2, 3. So we are just swinging, from one branch to the other branch in a specific tree. Sometimes we also forecast what the other person might say and plan a response. So already when somebody is speaking to you, you're planning a response, forecasting what the other person is going to say, and according you're going to plan the response. Example, fight with a spouse or a parent. Now my husband is going to say this, so I have to be ready with this answer. Or the child will think, abhi meri maa ya mere पिताजी abhi ye bolne wale hai, so now next thing I have to say is this. So being prepared with a response, anticipating what the other person will say. Intense argument inside our head, which is awfulizing, nothing but blowing things out of proportion. Then it saps away a lot of our energy, blows things out of proportion, and we stop living in the moment. When we start forecasting, then we stop living in the present, because we are planning the future. All right, so we finished with thought blaming, we finished with monkey mindedness. Now in monkey mindedness, we don't give our brain the space which it requires for creative solution. All right. So since we are swinging from one branch to the other, there is no time between, in between to create a space for coming up with a solution. Monkey mind is obsessed with the push of the past. Okay. So this is one characteristic trait of a monkey minded personality, that it is obsessed with the push of the past. It lives in the past. It says, I can't forgive the person for doing this to me. So this is one instance that I'm giving you. Another is pull of the future. I can't wait to put in my resignation and give a piece of my mind to my boss. How he has been treating me all this while. I just can't wait to put in my resignation and just, walk out of that place. Often filled with bossy, judgmental inner language of must, should, can't, etc. Like, I must have done that, or I should have done this, or I can't do this, or it is not possible for me to do this. So you are actually bossing your inner self, you're judging your inner self, and you're making your inner self something which you're not. So you are putting demands on yourself, like, use of a must, that I must do this to become this, or I should do this to become that. So when we put a demand on ourselves, it becomes very difficult for us to reach that particular or fulfill that particular demand on a regular basis. It's not something one off, it is something which happens on a regular basis. All right, so it takes you out of the moment and out of what is best for your life. As I said, we forget to live in the present, and We forget what is the best for our life. So third one is old and outgrown ideas. So we are relying in this, we are relying on an established pattern. Okay. It's like, itne saalon se ye chala aa raha hai. For so many years, I've been practicing this particular, philosophy or this particular behavior. I think I should continue with that. So I will not really pay attention to the world as it is. I become insensitive to the particular context. Like, for example, as I gave you the earlier example, that a child comes and tells, a teenager comes and tells you that she or he wants to go out for a, suppose they want to go out for a party, or probably even go to play garba or whatever. So you become insensitive at that point in time. What do? You say that no, it's too late in the night, you can't go. In our time we never went. So why should you go? You know, so we never had so much of freedom. So I'm sorry, I can't give you that kind of freedom or liberties right now. So you're relying on an established pattern. You feel that this is a reliable pattern, it can be trusted. So you rely on that particular pattern. So you're not paying attention to what is actually happening in the world, and you become insensitive to the present context. And outgrown ideas also, there are people who diagnose in their sleep. If this happens, then this has to be done. This happens, and that has to be done. Because the pattern is already set in your brain, the response is quick. So there is no way for you to move out of that response, because you become rigid in that response. You're set in that response. Then our suffering, relationship challenges, other difficulties are almost never ever solved by thinking in the same old automatic way. Now, suppose I ask you a question now, that if I were to present, this particular PPT or whatever, the emotional agility without a PowerPoint, and just went on talking, like in a lecture mode, without any modulation or anything, like how people give lectures, a sermon. So would it be easy for you all to take? I'm sure it is not easy even now to take, because there is a lot of content to be digested today. So it is not easy for people to, uh, we have to change with technology, we have to change with the world. We always say this, right now. Okay, we have to walk with the world, we have to make peace with a lot of things that are happening around us, and move on, and also walk with others in the world. So we can't be walking behind others, we have to walk with them. So if we stick to our old outgrown ideas, it is going to be difficult for us to walk with the people around us. And there is also a need to be emotionally adaptive. The last one is wrongful righteousness, the need to prove or hang on to the thought that I am right. Now, this is the most dangerous one that can hook you on to. Okay. The moment when you just need to shut up after a peaceful fight or a peaceful truce, sorry. Suppose a husband and wife have just had a fight, and they've called a truce. Chalo yaar, bas ho gaya abhi, now let's not discuss this anymore. And it's the time for you to actually zip it up. What happens? They need to just say one more thing. Say, I told you, no, I was right and you were wrong. And that's ill, and all hell breaks loose after that. Right? So have you experienced this anytime? Has anybody experienced this?
With parents, yeah.
You have, right? We have. Many times it happens. I don't know how many of you have watched Friends? How many of you watch Friends? Any of you have watched Friends?
Hello.
Yes.
I have.
Okay. Gopika's watch Friends. Okay. In that there is this one episode. I don't know, because if there aren't too many people, then I can't relate to that. Okay. So there's a wonderful episode where, this particular this comes out very clearly, but I don't want to relate to that because not many of you all have seen that, so let's not talk about that. So wrongful righteousness is the same need to have the rightness of your cause validated. See, what I told was right, so it is a desperate need to prove that you're right, you know so and also you need validation for that. It's not only enough that you say that I am right, you want the other person also to accept that you are right. That is where the hook is. It's not only saying that, I'm right and you're wrong, but also making the other person accept that you're wrong, you are right, and he is or she is wrong. So it's an unjust treatment confirmed and can steal years from your life. Okay. This can actually make your life miserable, this particular hook. You've seen in if you go to villages, you will see long drawn family feuds across the world. An actual reason is forgotten. Actually, from where it started, nobody remembers also. And hundreds of years they have been enemies. Hundreds of, the generations have been enemies for no reason apparently, or the reason has been forgotten. Okay. It's just that we are right and you are wrong. That's it. And it merely prolongs the sense of injustice and depriving yourself of other good things that you value. Okay, so you're so busy in this particular, fight, that you forget that, you're actually promoting injustice. You're actually depriving yourself of other good things. You're so involved in this particular fight that you don't want to think about anything else that's happening around you. So it's like the saying, cutting off your nose to spite your face. It's something similar to that. All right. So to summarize today's session, ancient Greek master of paradox Heraclitus says you can never step into the same river twice. Okay? Because river water keeps flowing. So the water temperature changes, the flow changes, the mixture of water changes, the feel of water changes. Similarly, the world is constantly changing. We are being presented with new situations and opportunities every day. And to make the most of it, we have to break down old categories and formulate new ones. It's very, very important to be. We just spoke about, it's a very huge, it's a big book actually. And I just covered just the first part of the book, which says that how do we get hooked on? That's it. I am not even talking about getting unhooked. We are just now spoken about getting hooked on. All right. So we have to embrace the beginner's mind and approach novel experiences with fresh eyes, which is the cornerstone of emotional agility. So today, what we decided was what we discussed was mainly we spoke about what are emotions, why do we feel emotional, is it okay to be feel emotional, then what are the different types of emotions that we come across, primary and secondary emotions we spoke about. Then we also spoke about being emotionally rigid to moving towards being emotionally agile, and what are the four hooks. The first hook was thought blaming, second was monkey mindedness, third was old and outgrown ideas, and fourth one was, even I forgot that, 1 minute, wrongful righteousness. All right. So the four hooks we spoke about. Now we can have one session, we can have a couple of sessions later on to actually work on becoming emotionally agile. Today we were just understanding the concept of emotional agility. What are emotions? What is the concept of emotional agility? And also how we get hooked onto certain things in life, certain thoughts which actually restrict our thought process. All right. So that is all we covered today. And if you want to know more and if you want to learn more, you really want to become emotionally agile, we can have couple of sessions later on. All right. So I end the session here today. If anybody has any questions, please ask.
One thing that you had mentioned when you were, I won't use the word formula, but when you were saying, this plus this forms the thought process of how we get hooked onto some a
Yeah,
particular thought
right.
or a particular pattern. So,
Yeah.
at what point does, I mean, I won't say as an individual, But at what point does probably a professional or someone externally say, ki, okay, this pattern is, way far to be broken, or when can it be broken? Is there a limit, for saying that that hook
See,
has been made?
the hook is actually something which cannot be converted, which could be converted into a negative thought pattern when it goes on for a long period of time and it goes on unchecked. All right. So
Okay.
it has to be going on for at least, say, couple of years where you have been thinking negatively or getting stuck into these hooks and you don't know how to get out of it.
Okay.
So it actually forms a pattern of personality, okay, which could then get converted into a disorder.
All
So
right.
if till the time it is a personality pattern or it is a personality, I could say style, it can be corrected. But once it moves into the disorder category where it reaches an extreme severe form, it becomes difficult for even a professional to actually work on that particular. Then it is up to the individual how one can push oneself to get out of that particular situation, of course with the help of a therapist and a professional. But
Okay.
as I told you, once it moves into the disorder category, it becomes only treatable, it is not curable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yes, Mataji. Okay, so two things. One is you would define hook as like a knee-jerk reaction, right? Like or a pattern of
Right,
response.
right, right.
Okay. And the other thing is, I do need to revisit my previous question. If you could give me an example of how
Of the steering wheel which you're
emotions,
talking about, right? Yeah.
yeah, how
Okay.
it
Okay.
steers us, the
Right,
emotion.
right, right. Okay. Now, if I am driving a car, all right, what is
Yeah.
it that will move my car?
The steering wheel
The steering wheel, no, steering wheel,
or
the
the
accelerator.
accelerator.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the accelerator. There would be indicators which should also give me direction. Okay, so there are multiple things. So similarly, emotions are also multiple, right? There would be positive emotions, there would be negative emotions, all right? Or there would be time when there would be no emotions. So that will
Mm-hmm.
be when your car is switched off,
Mm-hmm.
right? There would be times when
Yeah.
the car is switched off totally, right? But when the
Mm-hmm.
car starts and there is a the accelerator is there, it is also one emotion which is giving a push, all right? An emotion
Mm-hmm.
is something which gives you a push to do something. It gives you
Uh-huh.
it is a
Yes.
stimulus, yeah, which makes you want to respond, all right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
steering wheel is something which will actually guide you, it is not the rationale. The rationale will be something which is external, okay, which will have an
External.
impact on, yeah, it will have, yes, a rational is what? A rational is something which will actually make you stop,
I thought
right?
that was
it
our
will it
intelligence.
it will be your, yeah, it could be your intelligence, it could be something which is happening around you also which will actually make you pause and think, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is actually your ability to manage your mind at that particular point in time. So it can't be the steering wheel. The steering wheel is still giving you directions to move left, right, center. So I don't know, now probably the engine of the car, that's what I could say, is the, if you're looking at the car as a, as a human being, then
Yeah.
probably the engine of the car is what will start or stop that vehicle, and that is the intelligence, like you're saying, it is the intelligence of the person which will actually help that person to want to either move in a specific direction or not move in a specific. Even when you're driving a car, it is your mind which is telling you, no, that okay, I want to go to a specific direction or I want to move in a specific direction, right? So when we are taking the car as an example, then the steering wheel is a part of our emotion only. It does not become the rationale.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the emotions are like what motivates you, right? And then
Yes,
the
yes, it is the, yeah,
and
it motivates
and
you. Yes.
and then the rationale is like the intelligence that maybe directs or
that gives you the direction. Yeah, it gives you the direction to, whether, that's why I said it could be the traffic signal, because when we are driving, the traffic signal could be the rationale, because that is what actually gives you an indication that you have to slow down, you have to stop, or you have to move, right?
Okay.
So the traffic signal is what could be the rationale there, although it is an external, but it is connected to driving. Right?
Okay, Mataji. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Hello. Hi.
Yes, Rasika.
Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so the first thing is that you mentioned a book in the starting of the lecture. So, like, if you can share the name of it, and
Yes.
if there are any more books related to like understanding ourselves better, like this one, so that will also help.
It's Emotional Agility by Dr. Susan David. I can mention it to you. It's a beautiful book. All of you can read it. It's a wonderful book which can be, used by, at least I found it very, very useful. In spite of being a professional, it really helped me to, guide myself internally to work in a specific direction, not getting hooked onto certain things in life, basically.
And are there any more books like this which you found helpful? Or
As of now, see, I don't read, frankly speaking, I don't get time much to read self-help books, because we have to read a lot of books about our therapy and other things also. Since I go to the schools, I read a lot of books on parenting. I read a lot of books on adolescent counseling. So my books are more to do with counseling. This I actually started reading during the COVID to help myself, frankly speaking, so, and it really was very useful. It helped me a lot. It made me more adaptable in my, and more flexible emotionally in my day-to-day life. So I would definitely recommend, if you could read this book. It's a beautiful book, actually.
Okay. And although the topic is gone, but you were talking about a Friends episode. So I was just curious about what episode you were talking about. A Friends
Okay.
episode.
Okay. You watch Friends? Do you watch
Yes,
Friends?
yes,
Have you?
yes,
Okay. It's that particular moment when Ross tells Rachel, we were on a break.
yes.
That is,
Yes.
So that is
Okay.
the wrong-minded righteousness. Basically,
Mhm.
you've just called a truce, and you're kind of, all hell breaks loose, after that, frankly speaking. So that's what I was going to say.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So anyone else?
Yes, Mataji. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
Pancham Pranam.
Krishna.
माताजी कुछ सिचुएशंस की वजह से या कुछ इवेंट्स की वजह से हम बहुत ज्यादा अपसेट फील करते हैं, और मुझे तो समटाइम्स ऐसा होता है कि मुझे बस अकेले रहना है, और कभी कभी तो ऐसा भी हो जाता है कि मुझे कोई इंसान तक नहीं दिखे, मुझे इंसानों से भी दूर रहना है, तो मैं इस थॉट पे हुक्ड हो जाती हूँ। तो मैं इसको कैसे अवॉइड करूँ?
देखिए, मैंने अभी जैसे आई थिंक गोपिका ने अभी एक क्वेश्चन पूछा था कि कुछ चीजें ना अपने पर्सनालिटी पैटर्न पे भी डिपेंड करता है, पर्सनालिटी टाइप पे भी डिपेंड करता है, और हमारे साथ में पास्ट में क्या हुआ है उसके ऊपर भी डिपेंड करता है। करेक्ट? सो अगर हम उसको नजर रखते हुए अगर हमने अभी का डिसीजन लिया, लाइक सपोज आपको, जैसे आप बोल रहे हैं, आप किसी से मिलना नहीं चाहती, यू डोंट फील लाइक मीटिंग एनीबॉडी, राइट? तो क्यों आप मिलना नहीं चाहते? उसका एक रीजन होगा ना। तो अगर आपने वो रीजन फाइंड आउट किया और उस रीजन पे काम किया, तो आपका वो हुक ये हो सकता है। देखिए, क्योंकि एवरी डे हमारे लाइफ में अलग अलग चैलेंजेस आएंगे, और हमको वो चैलेंजेस को फेस करना है, हम उससे भाग नहीं सकते। और लोनलीनेस इज जस्ट एन एस्केपिज्म, सिंपल। आई वांट टू बी लोनली इज जस्ट a reason to be alone, is just escaping from the situation. आपको सामने, उस सिचुएशन के सामने खड़े रहकर डट के उसका सामना करना है, वरना व्हाट इज द पॉइंट, राइट? फिर आप उस हुक में अटके रहेंगे कि मुझे अकेले रहना है। हम उस हुक से बाहर निकलने की बात कर रहे हैं अभी, राइट? तो हम उस हुक से कैसे बाहर निकलेंगे? अपने आप को, अपने एक्सपीरियंस को, हमको ओपन माइंड को ओपन करना है, और अपने थॉट्स को भी थोड़ा सा फ्लेक्सिबल बनाना है। आपका एक पैटर्न आ चुका है, थिंकिंग पैटर्न हो चुका है, जैसे आप शायद बहुत महीनों से एक ही तरह से सोच रही है, तो अभी उसी तरह से सोच पा रहे हैं। तो आपको अपने सोचने का नजरिया थोड़ा सा बदलना पड़ेगा, तो ही आप उस हुक से बाहर निकल पाएंगे।
Yes, Mataji, thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes.
Mataji, I have one question. Mataji, like I have a son, 8 years old son, and when I was expecting, I had like few complications, few family issues. So because of that, I think because of that only, I see some like negativity in my child.
Okay.
So is it key, how can I like overcome?
See, that's why I said, see, you are seeing that negativity in your child because you are still feeling that negativity. अभी भी आपके दिल में वो नेगेटिव इम्प्रेशंस हैं।
माता जी, नेगेटिव इम्प्रेशंस इसलिए हैं, लाइक वो ही इज वेरी जनरस, वो हेल्प करेगा जब आप उसको बोलेंगे कि केयर करो, एट द टाइम वो केयर करेगा। बट अगर उसको किसी ने कुछ पिन किया, then he gets like very irritated and he starts hitting and all.
उसका वो पर्सनालिटी ट्रेट है ना माता जी।
तो माता जी
अगर
डील किया जा सकता है
तो आप कहाँ रहते हैं?
माता जी एमपी में, इंदौर में।
अच्छा, आप इंदौर में हैं, तो मैं आपको इंदौर की मेरी एक फ्रेंड है, उसका नंबर देती हूँ। आप प्लीज आप उनसे कांटेक्ट कीजिए, बिकॉज ये बच्चे से डील कर रही है ना आप। इट्स अ 8-year-old सन यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट, राइट
माता जी?
हाँ, तो मुझे आई डोंट वांट टू कमेंट और आई डोंट वांट टू गिव एनी सजेशंस विदाउट पर्सनली और फिजिकली चेकिंग द चाइल्ड, because there could be multiple reasons for his behavior. It may not be only that, right? It could be many other things also. So it is better to have your child completely checked, physically assessed properly by a professional. उसके बाद में वो आपको गाइड करेंगी। चलेगा आपको माता जी?
माता जी चलेगा। तो माता जी मेरा एक ये कंसर्न था कि अगर जैसे मैं अपने बेटे को लेके जाऊं या तो उसके ऊपर तो कुछ ऐसा गलत इंप्रेशन नहीं रहेगा?
नहीं 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 नहीं, कुछ नहीं। इट इज जस्ट अ नॉर्मल प्रोसेस, सिंपल चीज है। जैसे अभी हम लोग स्कूल में, अभी अगर बच्चा मस्ती करता है तो स्कूल का काउंसलर उसको रूम में बुला के बात करता है कि नहीं, है ना?
यस माता जी,
है ना? इट इज समथिंग लाइक दैट ओनली। सो यू टेल दैट आई वांट टू हेल्प यू, आई हैव ऑब्जर्व दैट कि आपको जल्दी गुस्सा आ जाता है, आप इरिटेट हो जाते हो। तो बहुत मम्मी एंड मैं और आप दोनों जाते हैं हेल्प के लिए ना। डोंट टेल दैट आई एम टेकिंग यू, टेल देम दैट आई वांट हेल्प सो आई एम टेकिंग यू विथ मी, सिंपल।
ओके माता जी,
ठीक है ना?
ओके माता जी।
या एनीवन एल्स, एनी क्वेश्चंस? Shall we end the session today? Okay, so thank you very much.
Hare
Thank
Krishna
you.
Mataji.
Yes, बोलिए।
Mataji, I have a doubt. Like, if a person is going through some mental disorder or emotional disorder, we all see in mental hospitals there are some patients who even doctor can't treat them. So it is like उनका responsibility है वो patient का, मतलब they are the responsible for their condition, like even from their karma side.
मुझे समझ में नहीं आ रहा है, आपके फैमिली में से कोई एडमिटेड है हॉस्पिटल में? इज दैट व्हाट यू आर सेइंग और यू हैव
नहीं
सीन सम?
माता जी, जैसे
आपने
से
किसी को
जनरल
देखा है? हाँ, आपने मतलब यू हैव सीन समथिंग लाइक दिस?
मतलब वर्ल्ड में बहुत ऐसा हो रहा है, तो ऐसे।
माता जी वर्ल्ड में बेसिकली मेंटल असाइलम्स कम है। एक तो मैं बोलती हूँ इतने सारे हैं भी नहीं दुनिया में, जितने मेंटली इल लोग हैं, सब लोग हॉस्पिटल में एडमिट नहीं होते हैं। मोस्ट ऑफ देम गेट ट्रीटेड एट होम ओनली, बिकॉज मेंटल इलनेस इज नॉट समथिंग विच नीड्स हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन ऑलवेज। ऑल राइट, वो एक पहली बात तो ये है। और अगर कोई फैमिली में मेंटली इल है तो उसका स्पाउस या उसके पेरेंट्स या जो भी है, फैमिली की जो अथॉरिटी हेड, फैमिली हेड है, उनकी रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी बन जाती है उनको संभालने का। हॉस्पिटल या डॉक्टर का रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी नहीं है, क्योंकि an emotionally unwell person or emotionally unhealthy person needs supportive environment at home, जिससे वो जल्दी ठीक हो सकता है।
नियर पीपल,
हाँ, अगर नियर एंड डियर वंस है जो उनको समझे, जो उनके साथ में उसको सपोर्ट करे। पर अगर बहुत ज्यादा सिवियर है डिसऑर्डर, तो कभी कभी हॉस्पिटलाइजेशन की जरूरत पड़ती है। ऑलराइट, पर उसके लिए आपको एक प्रोफेशनल से मिलना होगा, साइकेट्रिस्ट से मिलना होगा, साइकोलॉजिस्ट से बात करनी होगी, तब जाके वो असेसमेंट आप कर पाएंगे।
ओके माता जी, हरे कृष्ण।
हरे कृष्ण। एनी अदर क्वेश्चंस?
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Yes,
हरे
Mataji.
कृष्ण।
Mataji, is it the responsibility of that person also who is emotionally hurt or emotional disorder? उनकी भी responsibility बनती है that they should also push themselves or take the help that we are providing or understand this. And or what if they are very stubborn and they just want to be like that, want to be irresponsible, want to continue the pattern that they are.
See, there are two things when a person is mentally unwell. Okay, first is that the person does not have insight. Not having insight means not being aware of what he or she is going through. Okay, that is the first aspect. Second aspect is aware of what the person is aware of, what he or she is suffering from, or what he or she is going through, but unwilling to work on himself or herself. That is what you are asking, right?
Yes, Mataji, sort
Right.
of.
So when the person is unwilling to work on himself or herself, then family members need to take a decision whether or not to support that member, or to continue or hospitalize that person. There are sometimes it is required to show the horror chamber to this person. Okay, bhai, if you don't work on yourself, this is where you will reach. You have to take the help of a mental health professional to show the horror chamber कि भाई आपने ऐसा ऐसा किया नहीं, तो this is where you will end up. So there has, thank you so much. So there has been recently, I think there was one case which came to me where the husband was a narcissist. Now, narcissist personality is somebody who's very very self-centered, manipulative, does not think about anyone in and around him. So it is always I, me and mine. और मैं जो बोलता हूँ वही सही है, या मैं जो बोलती हूँ वही सही है. So in this case it was a husband, and this lady has been living with this spouse for almost 20 years now, and she was more or less kind of done with the person. So she approached a psychiatrist and they put him in the hospital for 3 months, basically a mental health asylum, where he went through the process of treatment, counseling, and once he came back, he was at least okay for 6 months, but again now he's going back to his same old रूटीन. तो वो हॉरर चैम्बर, कभी कभी क्या होता है, हॉरर चैम्बर के थ्रू हम लोग लेके जाते हैं, तो उनको रियलाइजेशन होता है कि माय फैमिली मेंबर्स में टेक दिस काइंड ऑफ अ ड्रास्टिक स्टेप अगेंस्ट मी. So that awareness has to be given to that person, that if you don't work on yourself, then we will have to find other options to work on you. Probably that may motivate, we don't know.
Yes, Mataji, but again,
because even God says that those who I help, God helps those who help themselves. So अगर जब तक वो अपने आप को खुद की मदद नहीं करना चाहते, तब तक आप कुछ नहीं कर सकते. Even we as professionals can't do anything much, because there are so many couples who come for marriage counseling to me, and many times it happens that one partner is only willing to help work on themselves, the other partner is not willing to work only. So in such situations, what do? We can't do much, right? And even the one single partner can't do much about it. How much he or she also will work on the relationship. At a certain point in time, that person will give up. They will say that, forget it, I don't want to do this anymore. It's better that I live alone and work on myself. That's it. So that's how it is. I hope I have answered your question. Yeah.
But again, the age comes into matter, and the expectation from that person, their spouse, I mean. which is
Yeah,
something
yes, definitely, Mataji. Everything matters. So you have, that's why I said, na, you will have to take the help of a professional. Where do you stay?
I stay in Hyderabad.
So you will have to probably seek help locally from somebody there.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, so thank you so much. I'm so glad that all of you decided to join today also. Although I think today's attendance has been pretty low, but I'm happy that we had a nice interactive session and hope we are able to meet again after a couple of months for some other, series of sessions. Okay, thank you very much. Good night and Hare Krishna to all of you. It was very nice interacting. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing all.
Hare
Thank you so much,
Krishna.
Mataji. Hare
Hare
Thank you.
Krishna.
Thank you.